Hello, Mr. Mendel. Thanks for joining I on the BIS program today. I I heard that IFC probably will be thinking about working with the Thai government on drafting a new legislation on the development of alternative energy in the country. Why do you think that such a new legislation is needed here?
Well, Khun Sinpa, first of all, thank you very much for having me over. It's a very interesting question. We have started looking at this area because about a year to 2 years ago, we started a study to figure out what are the different issues within Thailand that the stakeholders, primarily the private sector, is facing. The biggest feedback that came back from the private sector was that they were not comfortable with the current legislation just because there were issues which they were facing which did not allow them to develop their projects as quickly as they would have liked. So along with that, we met up with the DED and we discussed those different aspects that we had received as feedback, and the DED was in agreement with the majority of those aspects, and we decided to do an advisory project with DED to address those issues, or at least try to address those issues. Some of them are outside our scope, so we can't really manage them, but there are others that we are trying to address as we speak. The reason why it is important is because the legislation and the regulations actually need to support renewable energy. Without the current, without the right structure, the renewable energy projects find it very hard to go forward, which means also that the banks find it very hard to finance those projects, which in turn means that renewable energy comes at a standstill. So what we're trying to do is actually address most of these issues through our current project so that we can help the sector move forward faster. These aren't ideas that we are coming out with, they're ideas and solutions that we are working out along with DED, but the thought process is to make the sector move to the finish line faster.
Is it true that one of the key factors in this new legislation will be to provide incentive for the private sector to invest in this industry?
Again, a very relevant question because this is something that the private sector needs. Our project is looking at it on a more holistic basis. So not just pure incentives or economics. That is a part of it. And we, along with the DED, will be giving our recommendations. But it is more in line with the procedural issues that the sector as a whole is facing right now. And we are trying to work with DED and other stakeholders in the government and the private sector to address them. But again, the incentives would be a part of it based on the best practices around the world. But the final decision on the incentives has to be with the government. So we will give some recommendations on the direction of those incentives, but the decision will be taken by the government.
Have you or IFC worked with other countries before in terms of drafting such a registration?
Well, we have worked with quite a few countries in the past. One of the key ones one of the ones that I can actually give you as an example is focused on the Balkans, where we are working specifically on the hydropower sector, where we are trying to address issues that the private sector has raised as well. When I say private sector, it's developers, equity owners, but also the banks, where they've come to us and they've asked us for our help, and where the government also realizes that they need to address some of those issues. So we've been coming in with the best practices to address some of those issues, and that has been a success where the government has made some of those changes in some of those countries, which has resulted in additional investment coming into those countries in hydropower.
And I guess that for working on this new legislation, IFC probably will have to work with other agency in the public sector as well,
Right.
apart from the DEDD.
Sure. Yeah. No, definitely. We definitely need to. We have been engaged with those agencies on a preliminary basis while that report was being put together. But along with the DED, we will now start reaching out to those agencies so that all of us can sit around a table and discuss these issues as soon as we have the preliminary findings from the work that we are putting together.
So can you share with us a bit what will be the next step from now? Yeah.
So currently, well, case in point, we were together at the largest wind farm that's been put together. And as I remember it was the largest wind farm in Southeast Asia. And the feedback that we got from the developers of that wind farm would of course go into our assessment of the regulatory issues. And we will be engaging with a lot of different stakeholders on a one-on-one basis, but also on a larger forum, in a larger forum. But in parallel, we will also be putting, we will also be getting a consortium of both international and local entities to work with us to address these issues and come up with their suggestions in the near future. And as we get that team together, we will start focusing on the areas that I've just outlined. So once we have a recommendation, we can actually engage with the different stakeholders in the government and with the private sector to get their feedback again. So it'll be a feedback loop that should hopefully evolve the regulations to a point where they are robust enough and where they work for the private sector as well as the government.
Have IFC have a timeline, or does the Thai government has a timeline for such a draft?
From IFC's perspective, we are looking at this project as a 2 to 3 year project, and of course this is being done with the DED, so we have the same mindset around this project. Some of the components of this project might need to be addressed sooner rather than later, and we will be working on them as we go further along.
With this new registration project in the pipeline, would that mean you're going to have to visit Thailand and the DED more often?
Well, honestly, I love Thailand, so it will be a pleasure to keep on coming back here. And of course, I am planning to do that in the near future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mendel, for joining Eye on the Biz. I hope to see you again very soon.
Look forward to it. Thank you very much.